Welcome to the Black Madonna Codes, a weekly conversation for women leaders who know the sacred feminine cannot be contained, sanitized, or erased.
Through honest conversation about how the Magdalene principles are woven through history, race, spirituality, and current lived experience, we're widening the story and honoring the many cultures that have carried this wisdom.
We're inviting you to open your heart with us as we explore the Magdalene path with curiosity, humility, and reverence for the lineages we carry.
Hi. So today we're Melissa and I'm Deidra, and we're here to talk about what happens when we widen the conversation about Mary Magdalene's spirituality to include race, lineage, history, and some unconventional perspectives.
That's right, we are. I'm so excited to be here with you today, Deidra. And I'm so excited for, we kept having these kinds of conversations behind closed doors as we were cultivating and curating the space that we wanted to have for our women who are coming to the Magdalene Pleasure Pilgrimage, Your Wild Roots, in the south of France in September. And we finally were like, why are we doing these conversations in private? I think these are conversations we should be doing in public and inviting people into. So, Deidra, will you introduce yourself?
Yes. So I'm Deidra Towns. I speak and I write about practical spirituality, and I'm very inspired by the Magdalene story. I come from a long line of ministers and church and preachy kinds of things, and I've also spent a good deal of time exploring various perspectives on spirituality and various practices and integrating those things to be some cohesive thing for myself. And I support other people in their process with that. And Melissa, do you want to talk about?
Yes, I will introduce myself as well. I'm Melissa Keenan. I founded the Heart Open Publishing Enterprise a couple of years ago. I'm also an intimacy coach. And I have come into this relation with Mary Magdalene. It's been very deep and meaningful for me in really like deconstructing from, I want to say, capitalism, deconstructing from the patriarchy, deconstructing from purity culture. Mary Magdalene has carried me out of a religious tradition in a high demand religion. She's kind of rocked my world. So, and I'm the primary host. Deidra and I are co-hosting the retreat. And so again, this is all in partnership with that retreat. I would love for us to get to have a moment to go a little bit deeper into what our relationship is with the Magdalene, just to give some context for that. You want to go first, Deidra?
Magdalene has been kind of a not amorphous, but a figure that wasn't really clear. She was just like an aside, like a mention in my growing up, in my indoctrination in church and stuff from the Christian perspective, from the Black Baptist tradition. And she was like an ancillary figure. And I think that often her power and her presence is often glossed over. And I believe that's been a function of patriarchy and misogyny. Just women are just not as important, generally speaking, in that worldview, in the patriarchal worldview. The feminine is not highly valued. I'll say it like that. And so for me, understanding who she was and what she did and how important she was to the work, to the mission that Christ was on, that Christ embodied in the body of Jesus was on, was so significant for me in looking for female representation in the Bible. Do you know what I mean? Like you get all these stories, but most of the stories are about men. And so having her there and really getting to digging deeper and digging into understanding, you know, she was there first at the tomb. She was the witness. She was the one who anointed his feet with the oil. She was like, she did some very important things. And I think those things are valuable, but I think we get to see ourselves through that lens as well as women, because part of her legacy is one of kind of erasure, about the erasure of women and their contributions in society. So that's what's there for me.
Thank you. That's the element that really has resonated, I think, most for me as well. Like as I started to learn deeper things about Mary, well, even learning things about her that allowed me to understand like the things that we do have in the New Testament and go, oh, wait a second. Like, for example, like she was carrying oils. Like that was, I was like, oh, I didn't really even make the connection. Like that's a priestess lineage. But the more that I learned about her, the more that I was able to then recognize, her power represented pieces of my power that had also been erased. So interesting that my throat is like going, clogging up around this. It's been a big journey of coming into being able to be fully self-expressed in like all of these parts of what it means to me to be in my power, in trust with myself, listening to my inner authority, being in comfortable relationship with my sexuality and sensuality and erotic energy, like being in connection and relationship to my capacity to bring healing to others, like all of that. I found mirrored in Mary, and as each layer kind of presented itself to me, it was an invitation for myself to drop, the cloaks and the defenses and even the shame around these different parts of myself that I was holding. And I think that's such a beautiful kind of message that she carries for everyone, to really be oneself and to be in love. Like, how can we really be in love if we don't fully love ourselves? So I think that's what kind of lands for me around Mary. We have this whole dialogue that we intend to bring to this conversation every week about the Black Madonna Codes. We don't pretend to be some kind of scholars or anything like that. We might say stuff and get it wrong sometimes, but we did feel it was really important to bring these conversations in, and particularly around the Black Madonna, and how it relates to women in spirituality and leadership today. So I'd love for us to kind of like go into a few of those pieces around what is the Black Madonna for those who don't know, or maybe kind of broadening even what we know about the Black Madonna. Yeah.
I wanted to, she's something that I find remarkable about her is that her independence, that generally all the other women in the Bible that if I'm recalling correctly, the stories, they're all attached to men, except Mary Magdalene. She's like able to stand on her own. She chooses to follow. She brings a lot to the table and I feel like that's so loaded right now with all the conversation about relationship and masculine femininity happening on the other side of the internet. But she brings her whole self, and she's not what is it? She's not I can't think of the word.
Dependent or
No, she's not. It's like she's able to like withstand criticism, right? Because when she does the thing with the oils and his feet, they're like, why are you wasting this oil? And she's like, mind your business. Like, why are you in my business? So, like to be able to stand, to be a majority of one, to stand on her own feet and to not feel the need to acquiesce or to shrink herself to fit someone else's idea of what's right or what's good or what's best or whatever the case may be. To have that, your own North Star, and to have the courage to follow that. That's something.
Love that. We opened up this conversation with a bunch of images of Black Madonna statues and figurines and things. And there's a lot of like legend and myth and controversy, I would say, surrounding these images. Some say that it's Mary, but we don't know which Mary. The one behind us is holding a baby. So then you would think, well, it has to be Mother Mary holding baby Jesus, but it could also be Mary Magdalene holding baby Sarah. Some say that the black statue of the woman is actually Sarah. And then some have some even deeper kind of theories around this, that many of these statues existed before the cathedrals were built around them, existed in relation to ancient goddesses that were venerated in the areas. And a lot of times, potentially the chapels or the cathedrals were built right on top of pagan worship sites across Europe. So that then these likely the women, these individuals who carried these deep rooted traditions in relation to the ancient goddess, kept these figurines, renamed it Mary so that it fit into the Catholic kind of dogma, and actually it's still this element of ancient goddess. But we know that ancient goddesses came from all kinds of cultures, came from all over the place. And, I've heard things about these Black Madonna figurines, like, well, they were made out of copper and that's why they turned black, and they were never intended to be black or whatever. I just think that the controversy around it all says to me there's an invitation to talk about race and spirituality. There's an invitation to, like, it doesn't actually matter to me what's the historically accurate thing. What matters to me is how are we creating an inclusive conversation, and how are we actually looking at the spiritual lineages and traditions where so much of what Mary carried and so much of what we're carrying today comes from. So that's what I think of when I think about Black Madonna.
That's a lot. That's a lot. And it's kind of like, well, why are there the statues of with her being different colors and even paintings? So it's one thing you can say that about copper, but I know in Russia they have these paintings of the Black Madonna and she's black. And I think it's important to add to the conversation that these images were created before race was a construct, right? So race didn't become a construct until well after Christ had ascended. And so the people in that time had a different worldview than the way we see people today. So I don't know that it mattered then.
Right.
As much. And that's something worth looking at.
Yeah,
today.
Absolutely. I think it's also worth mentioning in this conversation, even in imagery of Mother Mary and Mary Magdalene, we have some amazing artists throughout the last 2 millennia who have done these gorgeous paintings, but a lot of times they're portrayed as white women, and it's really unlikely that they were. I know that there's, again, that's a controversial topic, but there's like kind of three possibilities: that Mary Magdalene was white with red hair, or that she was Middle Eastern, or that she was actually from African or Egyptian descent. And so it matters. And the part that I think that bothers me, and I know I'm not alone in this, is that we've become so narrow as to only name her white and kind of only include white people in these spaces and white perspectives in these conversations. And that does such a disservice to everyone on the planet.
Definitely.
So I'd love for us to kind of like,
that's a function of the erasure we were talking about, though, right? That erasure is a part of it. It's like the winner of the war gets to write the history. They get to write about what happened, and it's their perspective. So,
and what does it mean when we make someone whiter? Like, there's this really strong emphasis in spirituality to focus on light and whiteness. And that's the most pure thing. And I don't think that's actually separate from race, because unfortunately, with the construct of race, we have also set that up as a hierarchy and as a precedent. And when you connect more deeply to these ancient feminine teachings, you recognize there's like so much beauty in darkness just as a concept, as well as light, that the wholeness is what brings us into like unity with ourselves and others. And so why wouldn't that be the same when it comes to race?
Right. Like it's not okay. Like there is a narrative that it's not okay. Like darkness is not okay, or darkness is bad and whiteness is good.
Yeah.
And that filters into everything, right? Into our everyday life. And I love what you're saying here, that you don't get a full picture if you don't have contrast, right? Mm-hmm. If you are old enough to have had a TV that had knobs on it, right? One of the knobs was contrast. And if you turn the contrast all the way up, you couldn't see the picture anymore.
Right.
Right? You can't, it's either all white or all black, that you need both things. You need your light and your shadow. And understanding your shadow. I mean, I'm sure lots of people, if you've been doing any level of personal development work, you understand the importance of recognizing your shadow and what's in there, and how, to the extent that you don't acknowledge that stuff, it will come back to bite you on the butt. So, so there's that. And those things are really important. And so it's interesting how when you start to notice the way these ideas sort of filter into every sort of sector and corner of society. And if you're not aware, the risk of someone having an issue with the word woke, right? If you're not aware that that's what's happening, you won't see it and you'll miss it.
Yeah. Which was for a very long time. Right. Deidra and I have been friends for several years. Like what? Maybe like 4 or 5 years, something like that.
In the pandemic, I think was when
yeah, exactly.
Right.
Oh, and I had this moment last. Deidre's been so patient with me. I am certain I will get something wrong. I am very, I'm actively working on decentering whiteness and working on my relationship with how I have contributed, even unknowingly, to white supremacy. It's like I've held white supremacy gatherings, but I certainly have contributed by being in ignorance around it. So I'm working on this. I have this aha last year, and I'm like, Deidra, did you ever think of this? Like, what the heck? Jesus wasn't white. And we are literally, I was taught from the time I could walk and talk, I was asked, would you die for Jesus? And then when school shootings and things started happening, they were in my face at church, would you take a bullet for Jesus if they had the gun to your head or whatever? So my whole life, I am gripped with this question, yes, I would die for Jesus. And I can't even worship in him in his true skin color. And I'm having this aha, and Dreda's yeah, at Black Church, we talk about that. We've been talking about that for a really long time.
Right. I mean, it says in the Bible that he had hair like wool and feet like burnished bronze. So I don't, but I also get that people have a need to create their deities
Yeah.
in a way that's relatable for them.
Yeah.
And on top of that, there's Jesus the man, and then there's Christ the Spirit. And I don't think Christ the Spirit has a color. But the way the Bible was weaponized, right? We talked last week when we talked, we were talking about that there was you had watched Harriet, and there was a scene in the movie where someone was reading some scripture. They were at church, and the scripture that was read, you're like, I don't know that. Like, I don't know this. Like, where are they getting this? And I was like, yeah, because there was a slave Bible. There was one Bible for white people, and then there was another Bible for slaves, because they didn't want slaves to hear about like the story of Exodus, about getting free, about they didn't want any of that narrative they did not want enslaved people to be exposed to any of those narratives. And so that's how we got a slave Bible. And the way Christianity was weaponized, they said there's a thing in the Bible about the Ham, the son, those sons, and that Black people are the sons of Ham. That's the narrative that was perpetuated, and that those people were supposed to be slaves. And so there was a lot. There was a lot of using biblical text to justify the enslavement of Black people. And so that's why race becomes an important part of the conversation, because there's some things that get to be undone.
Yeah. I've had, and I've said this now a couple of times, but I feel like it's important to speak into this intro as we're talking about, hey, we're having these conversations, is that I've had women say to me, in these spiritual spaces, like, but we're all one. And so what about that? And so I don't pay attention to race, or kind of this version of I don't see color. And I understand, I think there's this nuance that we're being invited to hold. We're being invited to expand deeper, because I love that place. I love tapping into that place in meditation or in church, or when you're singing with others, or you're dancing in movement with community, and you're like, we are one. And you recognize there's not a lot of separation between me and the tree outside my window, and the earth and the dirt, and you and I. And that matters. Like, we need more people to tap into that. But if we only hold that as our truth, we are doing harm. Like, this is what I learned from my own lived experience, because race is a construct. Race has been existing for a long time now, and it has done a bunch of damage. And if we don't actually acknowledge and hold both of those in our consciousness, and hold space for people's different lived experiences, and hold space for the different ways that people of color are relating to spirituality and things, like, then we are actually doing harm. And there's no way around it. Even if we don't mean to be, we are.
Right. So the thing is, it sort of, what you're pointing to is related to the American individualism, sort of, right? We can be very individualistic. I'm just going to work on myself, and I'm going to get my perspective. And the thing is, that's great if you can walk through the world seeing yourself in other people, and seeing other people in yourself. If you can do that, that is a very elevated, very mature spiritual worldview, way to see the world. The problem is that you alone doing that does not change the systems and structures that have been put in place that are rooted in racism and patriarchy and
hierarchy
and right, sexism, there's all the isms, right? And so we have these systems and structures that are in place, which are imperceptible to people who are not impacted by them.
Yeah.
Right. So, like, right now, one of the things that's current in the news is the SAVE Act, right? So the SAVE Act is currently moving through the legislature in Washington. And one of the ways that's going to impact people is that they want, when you register to vote, they want you to show your birth certificate and your name has to match. Like the name on your license or whatever has to match the name on the birth certificate. And the problem is, if you've gotten married and changed your name doesn't match the name on your birth certificate. And it's going to disenfranchise a lot of women, right? This is a thing. And so to have the awareness, this is the way things get systemically embedded that create hurdles and barriers for people where there shouldn't be hurdles and barriers. So I know that this conversation, whoever tuned in was probably like, this is going to be a spiritual conversation, and now we're talking about politics. So.
Welcome to Spirituality with Deidra and Melissa.
That part. Because honestly, if your spirituality, if your personal development work is not benefiting the world outside of you, then what is it for? Like, is it just for you or is it for everybody? And I can't think if there's a bell hooks quote about that, which I'm going to bring it to the next call, about your personal development, your self-development isn't for you. It's for everybody. And so it matters.
It matters. That element of reciprocity, like, yes, I want to find peace and healing and beauty and goodness for myself, but then how do I look outside of myself? And especially if I'm getting a bunch of my peace and beauty and healing and love and light from somebody else's spiritual traditions, which we're going to go into. Mm-hmm. And how am I being in relationship with those things?
Right. And it's okay to go with what resonates with you, but you got to acknowledge the root where it came from.
Yeah.
You can't just snap it up and start teaching it like it's yours, and you don't have connection to that tradition.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely work to be done around that. And even in this Mary Magdalene conversation, what you were saying earlier about other deities, like Easter is related to the goddess Ishtar, right? And so, and how Rome, I can't blame the Romans. They're going around conquering all these different people. Part of the way you get those people on board is to sort of absorb their traditions and their belief systems so that they feel like they have a place within your new context that you're giving them.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that has been going on for a very, very long time.
Yeah. Yeah. These are the kinds of conversations that we are here to have. And we really welcome your comments. We welcome if you disagree. We welcome if you agree. We welcome if you have questions. We're here in the spirit of curiosity over certainty. We're here in the spirit of reverence for lineage and traditions. We're really here to have a conversation about accountability and not shame. Like, the point of this is to not make people feel bad, but to make people start asking new questions and taking accountability in new ways. We've really thought about the principles that we are standing in and the values we're standing in around this conversation. We also believe in listening as a spiritual practice, listening to perspectives that are not your own. We believe in courageous honesty. And I have literally invited Deidra, like, if I say something that's gross or not rooted in truth or still represents some ignorance or bias that I'm carrying, like, please, let's just hash it out live on the call. We also believe in honoring our nervous systems. And so you may find conversations where we're pausing to just, kind of breathe and listen and pay attention to our bodies, because this can be a common area to disengage. And so that's a practice as well. And we invite you into that practice too. And last but not least, we believe in spiritual sovereignty. I think that I have I have a pageant girl in me, and my what is your vision for the world is actually that people can be deeply celebratory of all of their neighbors, can see the beauty in their story, can see the struggle and the triumph. And even in the oh, you clearly haven't fully arrived yet, you're a mess right now, and it's still beautiful. And that's what we're both holding for this pilgrimage in September as well, that we get to just hold one another in our radiance among individuals who are doing, similar work, leadership work, who are out making big waves, making impact, because this message, we see value in going to conferences and things, but we often forget the value of feeding and nourishing our own souls and building sisterhood and community in those ways. Do you want to say anything else, Deidra, about the values that we've cultivated? We've done all this together. I just happen to have the list in front of me right now, but
no, I think you covered everything in terms of the things that we've discussed and what's important to us and what we want to pour out about this topic and why it's relevant, and who it's relevant for. I think in terms of iconography, I think Mary Magdalene is she's a valuable, the Mary Magdalene principle is a valuable thing to carry. It's definitely something you want to have as a touchstone for yourself. If you're in leadership, if you're in community, if you're creating belonging for people, if you are leading in any way, if you're leading yourself, if you're leading your family, if you're leadership doesn't have to mean that you're out there, going Mach 3 with a flag. It doesn't have to look like that. It can look like leadership in very small ways. It looks like standing up for yourself. It looks like standing up for others. You have more power than you know. You do. And I think Mary Magdalene reminds us of that.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Thank you to those of you who have tuned in. Please do leave some comments for us. Let us know how this is landing. Let us know what kind of topics you'd love to see us cover, because there's really nothing off the table in this conversation.
Clearly.
What we love about each other. And we've got lots of things going in this vein. I also am running the Magdalene interview series, which is an opportunity for women to get to share their relationship and story with the Magdalene and their leadership and their relationship to feminine spirituality, and particularly decentering white voices and centering voices of all kinds of individuals. And so that's something that, you have a story. We'd love to feature your story on that show. We'll be back every Tuesday at 10:30 Pacific time. And we would love for you to come in and join us. Schedule this into your calendar. And if something here has resonated with you and you find yourself feeling called to France, please do reach out. You can private message either of us, and we'd love to talk to you more about what that looks like as well.
France is going to be epic. It's going to be so much fun.
So yummy. Thank you for joining us today. And Deidra, we are going to have so much fun.
So much. Yes.
All right. Bye for now.
Bye.